Somebody's got to run the show, and this is the way it works for us.
I don't know if you want to talk about it. When you sang it in a personal, more personal environment, how did you just sing it, or was it?
Yeah, I sang it.
You played it with a company?
No, it was the band. It was the music that is on the album, because we always write the music first, and then the lyrics always come much later, and the vocal tracking is much later. So I basically sang on top of the tracks that's on the album. There's a version of me singing the song that maybe I'll release in the future as a B-side or maybe a fan club single or something. Not because I think I sing it better than James. He sings it better than me, obviously, but there's a certain amount of emotion that is, because it was such a personal lyric that made the version that I played for my dad and played at his funeral, made it very special.
Yeah. Do you have maybe, when James has to deal with more personal subjects, do you have personal talks with him in a way? Or
yeah, anytime that James, strike that. Every time James begins to, record his vocals, he'll sit down with me or John and talk about what the lyrics mean. And, through the years, he's been the voice of some very personal subjects for both me and John. John's written about his dad dying with Take Away My Pain, and I wrote about my mom dying in A Change of Seasons, and, my 12-step songs. For our whole career, James has been this voice that often has to convey our lyrics. And so James will always sit and talk about it, try to understand what, each word means and each phrase, and and just kind of make it his own so he could deliver it in a way that's going to really portray the emotion of the lyrics.
But yeah, I think you've been together for like already 20 years, more or less. But I can imagine that all these personal things and growing older together, that it really tightens the bond in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been together almost a quarter of a century now. We've been together since we were teenagers, and now we're in our 40s and 50s with families, and yeah, so there's a bond and a history between the five of us that you can only have through the test of time, and we get along better now than we ever have. I mean, when we were younger, we would bicker and fight over everything, and every single decision, whether or not the cup should sit here or the cup should sit there, would be a 2-hour discussion. And, that's the kind of shit that almost breaks up a band. That's the kind of stuff that really nearly tore us apart back in the 90s. It was only from sustaining that stuff and learning from those experiences did we grow personally. And now, the last 10 or 12 years, we function very, very differently. There's a real understanding between the five of us on how the band runs. Internally, the way that decisions are made. I will call most of the shots without having to discuss it. I will, I will design a T-shirt or the album cover or make a set list without having to discuss it. And everybody's cool with that. There's no resentment because of that. A lot of the fans think, oh, it's a dictatorship, or Mike or John are running the show, but somebody's got to run the show, and this is the way it works for us. It runs smooth. Everybody in the band is cool with it, comfortable with it. There's no resentments. It is the way that this band and business runs smoothly, and we get along better than ever because we don't have to bicker and discuss every little thing. Everybody's comfortable with the way it runs, and we're like grown men now. We feel a real bond and a real family together that was never there when we were younger.
But was there a certain point that you can point out that maybe this changed all of a sudden, or was it process-wise?
Yeah, I know exactly when it happened. It happened at the end of the Falling Into Infinity tour, when basically that album and tour almost broke the band up. I was leaving the band. I had had enough. I had enough of the external bullshit with the record companies and producers and outside writers, and all of that stuff was tearing us away on the inside. Suddenly, we were bickering and fighting and disagreeing about everything, and I was ready to leave the band, and that was the catalyst or whatever that basically sat us down and said, look, if we want this to continue, things have got to change. We got to get rid of all this outside bullshit. And even internally, we need to come up with a system that everybody is comfortable with, and we could stop this internal bullshit. And that's at the point where we decided we were going to self-produce our own records. Me and John would produce them. At that point, we decided there were certain decision-making processes that would be, you know, given to certain people, and that's the way that we would function. And it's been great ever since.